Hello guys, welcome back to another tutorial. In this tutorial, I'll show you how to deploy a LAMP application on AWS. In this example, we are going to be using this learning management system to deploy our LAMP application, and I will include the link to download the files in the description. But if you have a files of your own, then you can use that as well. The steps that we will use to deploy the LAMP application is the same. So let's go in the management console to see how we can do that. I'm going to switch to my management console. And I'm going to minimize this for a second. This is the zip folder that I downloaded from the site. And in this zip folder, I have the files for my application. I'm going to unzip this zip folder. Just going to extract. Move this here. And I'm going to extract. And I have extracted files and they are in this folder. The next thing is I'm going to go in there. I'll click on this folder. This is the folder we need. I'm just going to take this folder and drag it to my desktop for now. Close that. And in this zip folder, under this file, these are the files we need to add to our HTML directory on our web server. So I just want you to take note of that. I'll close this for now. And I'll go back to the management console. To deploy our LAMP application, I also made this list. And these are the services we will use to deploy our LAMP application. We will use S3, VPC, IAM, RDS, and EC2. We are going to use S3 to store the files for our application. Then from S3, we are going to transfer those files to our EC2. We will use VPC to create our security groups. We will use IAM to create our role. We will use RDS for our database. And the EC2 is the server that is going to host the file for our application. So let's start and we'll just follow this list in this order. So the first thing we'll do is create an S3 bucket and upload the files for our application to that S3 bucket. So I'm going to move this to the side. So I'm going to select services and I'll select S3 under storage. And I'll click create bucket. I'll give my bucket a name. And make sure your name is different from mine, and I'm going to put it in the US East region. Then I'll scroll all the way down and click create bucket. Now I've created that bucket, it is right here. I'll select that bucket. I'll click upload. And I'll just move this to the side somewhere over here. And I'm going to drag my zip file in there. And you can now see it here. Let me maximize it. You can see the zip file here. I'm going to scroll all the way down and click upload. So it is now uploading my zip file into the S3 bucket. I'll give it a couple of seconds. I've now successfully uploaded the zip file into my S3 bucket, and that's all I need to do for this step. For the second step, I need to create the security groups for my application. So I'm going to minimize this. And under services, I'm going to select VPC under networking and content delivery, select VPC. And on the left side, let's just scroll down until you see security group, select it. And I'm going to click create security group. For the security group, the first security group we are going to create is the security group for our EC2, which is our web server. So I'll call it EC2SG. And for the description, I'll give it the same. And we are just going to leave it in the default VPC. I'm going to add a rule. The first rule I'm going to add is an SSH rule. To be able to SSH into this web server, I'll leave it at anywhere. I'll add another rule. It is going to be HTTP on port 80, and it's also going to be anywhere. And I'm going to scroll down and click create security group. We are going to create another security group. So I'm going to select security group again, create security group. And this second security group will be for our database. So I'll call it DBSG. and I'm going to give it the same name for the description, and I'm going to leave it in the same VPC. I'm going to add a rule, and this is going to be MySQL and Aurora, and the source is going to be from our Ec2 SG. So under the source, select there and select your whatever name you give to your web server security group. Then I'm going to come down and create security group. So we have completed the second step for the VPC. The third step is to create an IAM role to allow our S3 to communicate with our EC2. So let's select services, and I'm going to go under security, identity, and compliance, select IAM, and select roles, and click create role. It is going to be AWS service role, and select EC2, and click next for permission. And under this search, type S3, and you should see this Amazon S3 full access. Click here to check it, and click next for tag. I'm not going to give it any tag. Click next for review, and let's give our role a name. I'll call it S3 role. Then once you give it a name, click create role. And we have our S3 role there. And that's all we need for this third step for the IAM. The next step is to create our RDS. So under services again, we are going to go to database and select RDS. We are going to click create database, and it is going to be MySQL. Scroll down, and under version, we are going to use version 5.7. Then let's use the free tier. Scroll down. Under database identifier, I'll leave that as default. And let's give it a username and a password. I'll leave it as admin. I'll create a password. So once you enter your password, confirm the password. We are going to scroll down. And let's use the DB T2 Micro, which is the one that has the 1 CPU and 1 GB RAM. Then let's scroll down. We'll leave all this as default. Under connectivity, we are going to leave it in the default VPC. Under additional connectivity, select that drop down, and we are going to cancel this default security group, and we are going to select there, and we want to select our database security group we created, and we are going to scroll down. Under additional configuration, let's give our database a name. I'll call it LAMP, and scroll all the way down and click create database. So it is now creating our database. And one thing I want you to take note of is make sure you know what your credentials are, because we are going to need this credential to connect our web server to this database. I'm going to close this. And the next step is to launch our EC2 instance. So while we are waiting for our database, we can go and create our EC2 instance. So I'm just going to go to services. Under compute, select EC2. I'm going to launch a new instance. It is going to be Amazon Linux 2 AMI. I'll select that. And it is going to be T2 Micro. I'll select that. I'm going to leave it in my default VPC. So everything here will be default. But under IAM role, select that drop down and make sure you select your S3 role we created. Now click next to add storage. That will be default. Click next to add tags. And I'm not going to add any tag. Click next for security group. I'll select an existing security group, and I'll select the EC2 SG security group I created. Click review and launch. Everything looks good. I'm going to click launch. And in here, we are going to select a key pair. I already have a key pair. I'm going to select it. But if you don't know how to create a key pair, I'm going to leave a link in the description on how to create one. It is very simple. So once we select our key pair, click Launch Instance. And I'm going to click View Instances. We are going to give it a couple of seconds to launch this instance. Once our EC2 instance is up, we are going to SSH into it, and we are going to install Apache, MySQL, and PHP on this EC2 instance. Then we are going to transfer the files from our S3 bucket into the HTML directory on this EC2 instance. So let's give it a couple of seconds to complete that. I'm going to refresh, and I'll wait for it to complete. So now my EC2 instance is up and running. I'm going to select it. I'm going to copy the public IPv4 address, and I'm going to use PuTTY to SSH into this EC2 instance. Just in case if you don't know how to SSH into an EC2 instance, I will also leave the link in the description on how to SSH into it. So what we need to do now is SSH into our EC2 instance. So I'm going to do that now. So now I have SSH into my EC2 instance. The next thing we need to do is download Apache, MySQL, and PHP on this web server. Then once we've done that, then we can transfer the files from our S3 bucket into the HTML directory on our web server. And I have prepared this command. I'm just going to dock it here. I'm going to dock this here too. These are the commands we are going to need to install everything we need to install on this web server. The first command is the command we need to install Apache. So I'm going to copy that command, copy it, and I'm going to add them in my terminal. And this command is installing Apache. And we have installed Apache on this web server. The next command is to install PHP version 7.4. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste it down there. I'm going to enter Y for yes and press enter. And we have installed PHP version 7.4. The next command is to install MySQL version 5.7. I'm going to copy those and paste it in here. The next thing we need to do is set the permissions. So I'll copy this command. And for all the steps that I've been following so far, you are going to use these commands exactly. The only thing is if you are trying to use a different PHP version, then you will change this number. But other than that, all these commands will be the same. So I'll copy this and I'm going to paste it in here. And I've set those permissions. The next thing we need to do now is this one. I'm going to explain it to you. So these are the commands that I will use to transfer the files from my S3 to this web server. And the first command is just the command that I'm using to transfer the files from my S3 bucket. So you will use this command, but under here, you will change this to whatever your bucket name is. So let me go into my S3 bucket and show you, for example. I'm going to go to S3. And you can see my bucket name is academic/LMS. And that is exactly what I have in here. So make sure you change this part to your bucket name, but everything else stays the same. I'll copy that. Now paste it in here. Now press enter. So now I have moved those files from my S3 bucket into my EC2 in this HTML directory. So now the next command is just to change directory to the HTML directory, and I'm just going to do that. So for this second command, it should be cd var.html to change the directory. So once we've changed the directory to the HTML, let's press ls. When you type in ls, it is showing you the zip folder that we currently have in our HTML directory. The next thing we need to do is we need to unzip this zip folder. And I'm going to use this command to unzip it. Now press enter. So now I have unzipped that zip folder. If I type in ls again, you can see that we now have 3 files in there. And these files is the same files that we have in this file. So if you look in here, if I click this, we have our zip folder and we have this Mac OS X and this academic file. And those are the same files you are seeing in here. So what we need to do now is our web files are in this academic/LMS folder, and we want to move those files into this HTML directory. So the first command I'll use to do that is this sudo move. So I'm saying move the files in this folder, which is this folder right here, into the HTML directory. So I'll copy that and paste it in here and press enter. There are also some hidden files in this academic/LMS folder, and I want to move those files into this HTML directory as well. We have the htaccess file and the .ds_store files. So we can use these two commands to move those files over. I'll copy those and paste it there and press enter. Then the last thing we need to do is we need to delete the folders we don't need. So again, I'll type in ls. And you can see that in our HTML directory, we have all these files that we need there. And the hidden files are hidden, but if you type in ls-a, you are going to see the htaccess file and the .store file as well. So again, if I open my folder and I go into that folder, and you can see all the files we have in this folder, they are also in our HTML directory. And that is exactly what we want. And one thing you need to keep in mind with the steps we did here is we launch our Ec2 instance, we install PHP, Apache, and MySQL. Then under the HTML directory, we transfer these files into the HTML directory. Whatever method you want to use to transfer these files to your HTML directory is fine. The main goal is to make sure you have all these files in your HTML directory. So now that we have this file in our HTML directory, the next thing we need to do is enable mode rewrite on our Ec2 instance. And once we do that, we can now restart our server and we can use these two commands to do that. So let me maximize, make sure I'm selecting everything. Going to copy. Now I'll just move this here and I'll paste this in here and press enter. And now we have completed this step. So I'm just going to minimize this. I'm just going to go back to my Ec2. So under service, I'll go back to my Ec2 console. Select my running instance. I'll select that. And if I copy this IP address and paste it in here, I should be able to access my application. I'll paste that in there, press enter. And there you go. So now this step is just to connect it to my database. I'm going to start the process. I'll click continue. And this step is only specific to this application I'm launching. But if you have your own files, the previous steps we did will be the same. Then on this step, you just need to find the files for your database and connect your database to your Ec2 and everything should work. So in here, it is asking me for my product code that I used when I bought this. I'm going to put that in and click continue. So after I put in my product code, it brought me to this page. And on this page is where I'm going to add the information for my database. For my database name, I called it LAMP. I'm going to enter that in. And in case if you don't remember the information for your database, let's just go to the database again. So under services, I'm going to right click, open it, and I'll select RDS. and I'll select my running RDS instance. I'm going to select it, and on that configuration, you can get the information for your database in here. See, my database name is here. It is LAMP. I'm going to enter that in here. My username is admin. Now I'm going to enter my password. And for the database host, I'm going to come to connectivity and security. And the endpoint is what you want to copy. I'm going to copy the endpoint. Copy it. I'm going to paste it in here and click continue. And I'm going to click install. So it is now importing my database and connecting it. So now I have successfully completed that, and now I just need to enter admin information for this application. So I'll just do that real quick. So once I enter the information for my application, I'll click set me up and log in. And there you go. We have the application up and running. And this is how you deploy a LAMP application on AWS. And this is just a tutorial to deploy a LAMP application on a high level. I'm currently working on a project for you, and let me show you what it looks like. And this is the project that I'm working on for the next application we are going to be building. It will be this same application. We are going to be building it in detail, where we are going to be using a VPC with 3 subnets. We have a public and private subnet. It is going to be in 2 different availability zones. We are going to be using services like Application Load Balancer, Auto Scaling Groups, EFS, Route 53, and S3 Bucket, NAT Gateway. So this project is going to be a little bit more detailed than what we just did. And once we have done this in the management console, then the next thing we are going to do is I'm also working on the videos to deploy this application using CloudFormation. So we are going to be doing a lot. And thank you guys. Again, if you have any question on any of the steps, please leave a comment and I'll surely get back to you. Thank you and see you later. Bye.